A century ago, Christians made up roughly 20% of the Middle East. They were a foundational piece of the region's cultural mosaic, woven into the daily life of cities stretching from Beirut to Baghdad. This chart maps out a stark demographic collapse. Over the last 100 years, that regional population has plunged to barely 3 to 4% today. If you read official statements from various regional governments, you will hear a very different story. The standard diplomatic line claims these nations are thriving, diverse environments that rigorously protect their Arab Christian citizens. Curious, but if these ancient communities are officially protected and afforded equal rights on paper, what is driving so many of them to abandon the lands they have inhabited for 2 millennia? Researchers tracking this exodus point to a specific sociological framework to explain it. They categorize the pressures driving people out into 2 distinct forces: the smash and the squeeze. These 2 systemic forces work in tandem to make the region unlivable, transforming what looks like simple outward migration into a manufactured disappearance. We can start with the smash. These are the acute, highly visible shocks of violence and terror that grab global headlines and force people to flee immediately. The clearest modern baseline for a smash event is the documented genocide and mass atrocities committed by ISIS against minorities across Iraq and Syria, which literally emptied entire ancient cities overnight. But the threat is also immediate. Right now, Christian villages in southern Lebanon find themselves caught directly in the crossfire of the current regional war, suffering severe collateral devastation. Sometimes the destruction is highly deliberate. Recently, footage went viral showing an IDF soldier using a sledgehammer to systematically destroy a religious statue of Jesus in a Lebanese village, shattering a local cultural icon. And the human cost is deadly. In the same region, a Maronite priest, Father Pierre Al-Rai, was killed inside a home hit by multiple artillery strikes from an Israeli tank. These high-profile events trigger immediate international diplomatic reactions. The Vatican is directly addressing the violence, with the Pope publicly mourning the loss of the Lebanese priest. That is the nature of the smash. It destroys the physical infrastructure and the immediate physical safety of a community. You leave because if you stay, you might not survive the night. Then there is the squeeze. This is the chronic, daily harassment that rarely makes international news, but slowly suffocates a community over years and decades. To see how this works, we can look at Jerusalem. The official state narrative promotes religious equality and protection, but the reality on the ground is distinctly different. In a single year, researchers from the Rossing Center documented over 111 specific cases of targeted harassment against local Christians. The primary perpetrators of these acts are predominantly young men from ultra-Orthodox nationalist groups, driven by a volatile mix of religious extremism and nationalist fervor. This squeeze manifests physically on the streets. Clergy members walking in public spaces report routine, open harassment, most commonly in the form of people spitting on them as they pass by. It also targets the physical environment. There are dozens of documented cases of vandalism, graffiti, and the active desecration of historic church properties and monasteries. Then there is the administrative layer. Local authorities frequently use heightened security measures as a bureaucratic pretext to restrict Christian access to their own holy sites and religious celebrations. A single spitting incident or a defaced street sign does not physically destroy a home, but the cumulative, exhausting weight of this daily squeeze destroys the psychological feeling of home, making long-term existence untenable. When you trap a population between the explosive terror of the smash and the suffocating bigotry of the squeeze, the psychological toll eventually reaches a breaking point. Look at this demographic chart. Nearly 48% of Christians under 30 in Israel and Jerusalem are actively considering leaving entirely. When asked why, they point to 2 main drivers: escalating violence and a severe deterioration of the socio-political climate. This widespread intent to depart marks a permanent erosion of the historic status quo, the delicate balance that has governed and protected minority rights here for generations. The Middle East is currently standing on a precipice, facing the very real possibility of permanently losing an indigenous community that has been there for 2,000 years. Preserving these ancient communities means looking past the viral smashes of war to hold authorities fully accountable for this silent squeeze that normalizes intolerance every single day.